thinking is this is going to be kind of the sit-down sports edition. And what my goal is, and hopefully Andrew will be kind of a frequent flyer with us, and we'll keep coming back, and we can continue to talk about sports and things like that. Is we're just going to kind of just talk about sports a little bit and sort of just be a little bit of a distraction, because sports are starting to come back now.
And
me and Andrew, I would say part of our relationship was built on the foundation of sports.
Yeah, it's probably one of the first things we related on.
Yeah, we're talking about football in particular, and today we're just gonna really just kind of shoot the stuff about some football. It's gonna be a lot more relaxed, a lot more calm. This isn't gonna be very serious. This is gonna be just kind of just boy talk, just shooting the stuff. So I want to try to do this, maybe every Friday or every Sunday, where we could just kind of sit down and just have like a weekly sort of update where we just talk about sports and kind of update everybody on what our teams are doing, what the league is doing.
Would love it.
So let's talk, man. So how you feeling? Well, let's say kudos to the NFL for even getting a season.
Yeah, for sure. It was up in the air for a little bit. They had to cancel the preseason. Few teams will not be having fans in the stadiums to start the season.
So was that a state by state thing?
Yes. So by state guidelines, some states were not able to have fans. Some were. For example, the state of Colorado still had pretty intense guidelines. So the Broncos will not be having fans at their home opener on Monday night against the Titans. However, the Miami Hurricanes as well as the Miami Dolphins will have a stadium capacity of up to 13,000 people.
Now, is that all Florida teams? Like, what about Tampa?
I'm not 100% sure. It depends on the stadium. I believe it's a percentage on what the capacity is. I heard some numbers float around that it was supposed to be around 20% capacity. So the Miami Stadium is at about 13,000. I don't know what Tampa's at. But there will be football.
Thank goodness.
And in some cases, there will be fans in the stands.
Yeah, well, which is cool, because I honestly, just hearing how the whole college situation was going, I was a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
because that was an absolute bombshell of a situation, to say the least.
Yeah, it looks like most college divisions are not going to be having games. Looks like I think the Big Ten is trying to change course a little bit, where they have some games.
Yeah, and I think the SEC,
SEC,
Alabama, LSU,
they are playing.
They're playing, which doesn't surprise me. Those are NFL teams, honestly.
Yeah. They probably beat the Jaguars.
Maybe the Patriots this year.
But yeah, so I mean, college football is doing its thing. North Dakota State, they have a phenom quarterback over there. I forget what his name is, but he had no turnovers last year.
Undefeated as a player.
And 45 touchdowns in one season, including rushing and passing. He is organizing a 7-on-7, I believe, tournament for any college football players who want to play.
That's dope.
So
that's really cool.
It looks like they might be doing something like that somewhere down the line. I don't know if that's changed recently. Again, don't look me up. Don't correct me. But yeah, college football is looking a little iffy, but the NFL is looking pretty strong.
Which is good, because one of the things I was thinking about when things were starting to get closer to the preseason, you start to hear more information come out about the NFL. I was thinking, the NFL, that's one of those organizations, they're too big to fail. There's too much money to be lost.
Yeah.
I knew they would figure out something. To what capacity, I wasn't exactly sure. And the thing about it is that it's not going to go as smoothly as just the guidelines and everybody follows those. There's so many factors that are undetermined right now that you can't game plan for until you're in them.
Right.
So I'm very curious to see how it progresses as we go.
And there are two models that have been shown in pro sports so far. One of them is the NBA, who decided to create a bubble.
Which is working.
Which is genius and is working great. But it's very specific to the NBA because of the amount of players that can be on each team.
Yep.
The nature of what they did, in the sense of not every team was invited. Some teams left very early after they were eliminated. Poor Phoenix Suns, they won every single game.
I know.
They didn't even make it into the
Devin Booker, that man was on an absolute
grind.
Ridiculous. He was the MVP of the bubble, man.
And he didn't even get to go through the playoffs.
I know.
So there's that model the NBA is working on. You have the MLB, who is not doing a bubble, who has had a little bit of a rocky start there with the Mets and the Marlins for a little bit. Both of them had a lot of COVID cases. They had to.
Phillies got hit a little bit too, right?
They had to dial it back a little bit. They had to wait a little bit, cancel a few games, reschedule some. That's why the Mets right now, I believe, are playing 32 straight days of baseball. They don't have a single day off, as if the Mets needed it.
Yeah. Right. Hey, we won't even talk about the Red Sox. They honestly have the pitching staff of a high school team.
Oh,
we could go to the Red Sox and pitch for them a couple of games. Honestly, it's bad. It's bad.
I got a mean 65-mile-per-hour fastball.
Hey, I got a 55er, so we're good. That's about on par with the Red Sox right now with their pitching staff.
So then there's that model. The MLB is kind of working through. They had their struggles for a little bit, but again, the MLB, a lot less players per roster. With the NFL,
you can't do that.
Only including players, you have 53 that need to travel. That's not including coaches. That's not including training staff. That's not including equipment managers. That's not including doctors. You're looking at about 100 and...
Probably 10.
Probably 10, 20 people who need to travel per team with one team.
And what, 32 teams in the NFL?
32 teams in the NFL.
So 32,000 people in a bubble? That's not possible.
Correct. So it looks like the NFL is going to go with the MLB model, but they are going to go full season.
They have no choice. I mean,
that's
the only way they can do it.
It's going to be interesting because so far training camp has gone great. As of the past
the
past 2 weeks, there has been 0 COVID cases. There have been 0 players even put on a list of being tested for COVID or anything along those lines. So as long as the players keep doing what they're doing and they're not doing anything sketchy, inviting people over to their hotels, or the guy from Seattle.
Yeah, he got cut. Yeah.
Oh, God. What a dumb way to get cut.
I know, honestly. And he was a rookie, too.
Yeah.
A rookie, man, that's bold.
As long as people aren't doing any of that,
right.
And they're sticking to themselves, they're being safe, and they're staying with the team, the season should go off without a hitch. And the key word there is should.
Should, right? And now let's kind of dive in a little bit. So there's a couple teams I want to hear your thoughts on. Obviously, let's talk about the Broncos first, because that's your home team, of course.
Yeah.
You've been a huge Brian Greasy fan, and Terrell Davis fan ever since you were a little kid.
Yes.
You had the jerseys hanging in your room. Probably still do at your apartment now.
I don't.
Oh.
You gotta change
the wifey cut it down.
You gotta change some things up when you get married, bro. You can't be having the jerseys on the wall.
What about the man cave, man?
The man cave with 500 square foot apartment.
Soon enough.
No, the Broncos are looking good. They're a very young team, so it's very up in the air about. There are some teams where you could look at and you say their best case is 13-3, and their worst case is 11-5.
What's your projections this year?
I've seen anywhere from 11-5 to 6-10. Because they're such a young team. Drew Lock had a fantastic last 5 games. Only lost to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And it was close, too.
And it was close. It was a snow game. Very hard. You could tell it was hard for him in the elements. If he has a good offseason, and again, it's hard to have a good offseason with the way COVID has been dealing with things. There's no preseason games. You don't get any of that practice. They started very late. So a young team is going to be very up in the air. Are they going to be... they're probably going to have a slow start, I would venture to guess. Because
a lot of teams probably will. Let's just call it spade a spade.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those teams, I would venture to guess the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to have a slow start because, you got a brand new quarterback. I don't care if it's Joe Montana in his prime either. I don't care if it's... I don't care if you got God running your offense. When you change teams, you got COVID.
Yeah, learning a whole new scheme.
There's only so much you can do.
Sure.
But it is helpful to have a mind like Tom Brady's behind line of scrimmage. So the Bucs probably off a slow start, but the Broncos, because they have 2 young wide receivers, in KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's been really impressing in camp. He's been breaking ankles of Pro Bowl cornerbacks.
I don't know why he went so late in the draft. He was ridiculous. He's in my opinion, he was the best route runner, pure receiver in that whole draft.
And from what you're hearing, he's got a generational type talent at route runner.
Ridiculous. He's a freak of nature.
But the Raiders obviously had to go with Henry Ruggs because he's
speed guy.
He's a speed team.
That's a speed team.
And the Broncos picked Jerry Jeudy, and the Cowboys got CeeDee Lamb, which is also great.
Very good.
I would have been happy with either one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the young guys got to pan out on offense. Our offensive line is a big question mark. They've been struggling through camp. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb have been giving them nightmares.
And let's just listen, your offensive line has been a question mark even when Peyton Manning was there.
Absolutely. We won an offensive line with probably a bottom half of the league offensive line.
Peyton Manning covered up a lot of those holes there.
Yep, absolutely.
And that defense as well. So my biggest question for the Broncos is, can that defense hold up?
So you have a veteran presence like Von Miller, always valuable. Bradley Chubb was out last year with an ACL tear, so they were double teaming Von Miller on his side. They didn't really have a viable threat on the opposite side of the field, so they double teamed him. Pass rush didn't get there. Ergo, corners had to hold tighter for longer, and it just wasn't feasible. Defense still, I believe, was in the top half of the league, but still very hard to keep up when you don't have that pass rush.
I mean, we're on the field 60% of the time in the game.
Right,
you're going to get tired.
Right. Bradley Chubb's back. They just had their scrimmage on Saturday. Tweaked his knee a little bit, but they took him out as a precaution. He's doing okay. So pass rush is there. They just picked up Jarrell Casey from Tennessee,
it's a great
which
pickup.
He could play end or tackle depending on the formation that they have.
You guys probably have him at tackle. I feel like that would make more sense. Have Chubb on the outside, have Vaughn on the outside, and then have Casey in the middle there to disrupt the center.
Because they run a 3-4 defense, you got Vaughn and Chubb on the outside.
That would be the only thing that would make sense.
As outside linebackers.
Gotcha.
And then because Casey could play end or tackle, you got to fill those other 3 spots. So he can really fit anywhere in there. He's a very versatile guy. He blows up plays. He was the best player on the Titans.
That's what I'm saying.
Period. Minus maybe Derrick Henry.
Yep.
So you got them. We got 2 superstar safeties in Justin Simmons and oh my gosh. Oh my God. I am ashamed.
I won't know it. I don't know.
Justin Simmons and I'll come back. 2 really good guys. Really solid safeties. Probably really good safeties.
AJ Bouye
one of the better safety duos.
there.
You got AJ Bouye on the outside. We just picked him up from Jacksonville. Had a little bit of a rough year last year. We'll see how he does this year. We got Bryce Callahan on the outside. He's also a young guy who's going to learn. We have another third corner. I believe his name is Isaiah Yato.
Okay.
He's a young guy. He's going to do some learning. People picked on him last year a lot. He's got to learn how to be able to lock up a receiver and be able to hold his own. Our middle linebackers are good. Todd Davis is a little hurt right now. He should be good to go week 1 though. And Alexander Johnson is a beast.
He's ridiculous.
He's big boy. He's quick. And hopefully he can be that standout middle linebacker.
See, my question for you guys is, I think your front 7 is going to be the indicator as to how well your defense does as a whole, which you could say about a lot of defenses.
Sure.
The front 7 is what really controls.
Absolutely.
Because if you can control the line of scrimmage, you're going to be okay.
If the front 7 can pressure a quarterback,
it's easier on everybody in the back.
Because at the end of the day, if they pressure the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball sooner, gives the corners a chance to catch up.
Yep.
If they stop the run, the team becomes one-dimensional. They have to pass. The corners know what they're supposed to do. And you can sit down on that. That's exactly where the no-fly zone back in 2015 was so prolific because we had Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr., T.J. Ward at safety, Jonathan Stewart at safety.
T.J. Ward.
Not Jonathan Stewart. Was it Justin Stewart? Jonathan Stewart's the running back that was for Carolina. Whatever. And then you had Von Miller on the outside. You had Shane Ray. You had DeMarcus Ware. We had Derek Wolfe. An absolute monster of a defense. And all of it really came from that front 7 that was able to lock up. And the outside was able to lock up as well. And that was why we got so many turnovers and were able to hold teams so
because I think, especially, I think if you guys are going to have one weakness as a defense this year, I think it's going to be your cornerbacks in particular. Sure. Because you had mentioned that AJ Bouye, he had a bit of a tough year last year. And now, is there a correlation between him being the number 1 cornerback now that Jalen Ramsey had left the Jaguars? I believe so. And you got to think, him going to the Broncos, he's going to be a 1 cornerback now.
Sure.
So he's going to have the best wide receiver all game. So if your 1 corner can't do the job, your 2-3 corners are going to have a hard time as well.
It is going to be very interesting to see because Like you said, Bouye had a hard time last year. He was the first time having the whole season to himself as the number one receiver.
He got beat up out there.
Yeah. A lot of that I would attribute to the Jaguars.
They're just so dysfunctional. Oh my
They
goodness.
had no pass rush outside of Calais Campbell.
And he's gone.
And he's gone now. So
and they just traded Ngakwe to the Vikings today, actually.
Yes.
This morning, yep.
Good luck to the Jaguars, but
yeah, they're in big trouble.
AJ Bouye.
If you want to get a win, go see them.
Go see the Jaguars.
Okay.
They're just handing out W's.
Yeah, pretty much.
0-16 does not seem too out of the picture.
No.
But yeah, if AJ Bouye can really take advantage of that pass rush, as long as the pass rush gets there, it'll make AJ Bouye a lot better.
100%.
Get him to build some confidence, and then he'll be locking down receivers in no time.
And that'll take the pressure off your quarterback too.
Yeah.
Having a young quarterback to know you have a good defense you can rely on to get you out of a tough position. I mean, you got to think that's. I would imagine that's why Tom Brady did as well as he did. Because although the Patriots defense back in the 2000s wasn't, a star-studded cast, they were all so individually good at doing their job that Tom Brady could depend on them to make a stop,
right?
To do the things they needed to do to get them in a position to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I would imagine, that has to free you up.
Yeah,
that has to free you up.
Yeah, Drew Lock a lot of last year. The defense was holding tight pretty well, giving them good field position, giving them good places to start.
Just a lot of 3-and-outs last year for you guys.
Yeah, we had our struggles with that for the last, I want to say two years, maybe 3. We ran through Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch.
You guys got to get a quarterback that sticks around for more than 2 years.
Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, all of them had a very hard time moving the ball. Our defense, luckily, towards the tail end of last year, really helped us out. And got Drew Lock in good positions to make plays, and kind of feel himself out there a little bit. It was towards the tail end of the season. Playoff hopes were pretty dashed, so the pressure was off. He only started very recently after that because earlier in the season he had a hand injury. They put him on IR. They said, "Sit out. We might bring you back in November."
Right.
They did.
Which was smart, by the way.
He beat the Lions. He beat the Texans. I believe he beat the Chargers as well, and a few other good teams. He went 4-1 at the end of the year last year. Had a great game against a really good playoff team in the Texans and beat them at their own house. That can't go understated.
Right.
However, we've seen a lot of people come through Denver and have good games here and there. People want to compare Drew Lock to a Lamar Jackson, who played a little bit at the end of his rookie year. Patrick Mahomes, who played a little bit at the end of his rookie year.
Nice.
It's big talk because people are looking at these sophomore quarterbacks. The past 2 MVPs have been sophomore quarterbacks. Last one, you had Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, sophomore quarterbacks. People are looking at Drew Lock and Kyler Murray and saying, are you going to be the next sophomore quarterback who wins an MVP? Or is it going to go to a guy like Russell Wilson, who's been at the top of his game for a long time now? He deserves an MVP. There's just been so many guys in front of him that have just been outstanding. I'm sure he's looking up and saying, come on. I'm doing so good out here. I'm carrying the Seahawks team.
He reminds me of like a Russell Westbrook in basketball. Like a triple double to Russell Westbrook is like nothing new. So he gets like penalized for getting a triple double or averaging a triple double throughout the entire season. That was like an impossible thing to do.
Yeah.
And he did it 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Russell Wilson. The dude is so consistently good all the time. You know if there's a big play to be made, he's gonna make it. He gets penalized for that now. And I would say the same thing about Tom Brady.
Sure.
Tom Brady, he's been so consistently good. You're really going to sit here and tell me Tom Brady throughout all his years only has 3 MVPs? How?
It's the MVP.
He has 6 Super Bowls with 3 MVPs regular season. That's crazy.
MVP is a very hard award to win.
It's super subjective too.
Absolutely.
Super subjective.
And I heard one of my friends say this earlier, and hopefully he's watching. He'll recognize that I called him out. When people are voting for MVP, they often vote for somebody who hasn't won it before.
What have you done for me lately?
Remember the year it was Tom Brady and Matt Ryan who won it?
Matt
Ryan. Because Tom Brady already had his. And they were like, well, we really like this new guy. He really broke out. He really did his thing, blah, 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 blah. So let's give it to him. Peyton Manning broke out. I think he had something like 5 MVPs. Something crazy, 4 or 5. He was a great regular season quarterback. Just absolutely phenomenal, putting up crazy numbers. Only tied them up twice this year. So you really got to weigh. Russell Wilson, he's won a Super Bowl, lost one, hasn't won an MVP yet. Very surprising. Drew Brees. How has Drew Brees not won an MVP yet? Come on now.
Same thing as him. When you're so consistently good, you get penalized for it.
And it's unfortunate for quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and Drew Brees because you had to play in the same era as Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. You're never, and Aaron Rodgers. You're never going to win an MVP with those guys around. And now that presumably, I never believe it until I see it, Tom Brady is on a downturn. Every time someone says that, he comes back and throws for 55 touchdown passes and wins a Super Bowl. Randy Moss probably going to come out of retirement and go to the Bucks. But anytime you call out Tom Brady, he comes out.
Come on down.
But luckily, hopefully, with Tom Brady maybe on a downturn and Aaron Rodgers looking like Green Bay is not welcoming him much anymore.
What is going on?
Russell Wilson may pick up his first MVP. Depends on how Patrick Mahomes does in Kansas City because he's always the front runner in there. Lamar Jackson, if he could, pass a little more. He already did a great job passing last year. I don't believe anyone who tells me he's not a quarterback. He's a great quarterback who just so happens to run. He's not a running back who just so happens to run.
He'd be ridiculously good at running.
Right. Depending on what he does.
Hey, shout out Boynton High, by the way.
Hey, Boynton High right around the corner from
Boynton
here.
High, yep. Right around the corner.
That boy, you see highlights of that all the time.
Lamar Jackson.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, people want to say, oh, well, people are going to figure out Lamar Jackson. He's just running too much. They're going to figure him out.
We'll see.
His best running stats were at the end of the year last year.
We'll see.
He ran for more yards at the end of last year than he did in the beginning. I don't want to hear it. It has nothing to. He's just a talent. He's just a raw talent. You got a lot of these guys who deserve to win MVP. I hope Russell Wilson gets one. That would be great.
That would be sweet.
And then there are people like Kyler Murray and Drew Lock who are like, someone's got to break out this year. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Drew Lock? Is it going to be Kyler Murray? People think it's going to be Kyler Murray. He had a great year last year as a rookie on an organization like the Cardinals, who didn't really have much talent on offense at that point.
Weren't too many groceries in the shopping cart there.
That's exactly right. Now he's got DeAndre Hopkins. He's still got Larry Fitz on that side. That veteran presence is always welcome. He doesn't drop. He has more tackles. He's got more tackles than he's got drops.
Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, we will see what happens. I'm very excited for this football season, though. Extended playoffs this year.
That's right.
Each conference gets an extra playoff team. So, theoretically, an entire division could make the playoffs.
Which is wild.
NFC South. Yeah, so the NFC South, if I were to pick a division where every team would make the playoffs, that would probably be it. We're talking about the Panthers. They just have so much talent. Defense is a little rough. They lost Luke Kuechly to retirement. That's really unfortunate. He went through some serious injuries.
And they lost Davis Sr., right? He went somewhere else. Thomas Davis, right?
I believe so. Whatever happens on that defensive side of the ball, maybe some unknown guys can step up and make some plays. But in terms of who might win the NFC South, though, you got a really serious battle between the Bucs and the Saints. That's a big one. Yeah. It really, to me, that battle comes down to, can Tom Brady perform like he did 2 years ago, or is he gonna show that same signs of a tiny bit of aging like he did last year? Where, the last play we remember, he picked 6 against the Titans.
Right. Talk about that, huh?
Yeah.
Talk about not expecting that. I think the big thing for me with those two teams, obviously, I have a little bit of skin in the game when it comes to Tampa Bay. Because a funny side note, actually, I've actually been a fan of Tampa Bay as like a secondary team since I was a kid. Thankfully, my brother liked Tampa Bay, so I have a Keyshawn Johnson jersey, I have a Warrick Dunn jersey in my closet. It's hanging. I can go put it on right now if I wanted to. So for all those people saying that I jump ship or something like that, shut up.
Shut up.
But yeah, obviously my dog Tom Brady's down there, and Gronkowski's down there too. So a little bit of skin in the game.
Sure.
And shout out to Charity, because that's my good friend who I used to work with. She went back. She's from Tampa, and her husband to be got season tickets to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. And so my question was, you had brought up, so now what's going to happen in terms of the seating? What's going to happen in terms of the priority for season tickets? And I know you just kind of looked it up. So give us a rundown here.
So it looks like anyone that purchased season tickets in 2020 for the Tampa Bay Bucks is going to be given the option to either get a refund, get your money back. Or you can transfer your season tickets from 2020 to 2021, no extra charge, same seat, same everything. But also you have first dibs on tickets in 2020 for the, I believe it was the capacity that they're limiting to is 13,000 as well in Tampa. Correct me if I'm wrong, don't. But those first X amount of tickets will be offered up to season ticket holders first.
God,
who retain their season tickets to 2021.
So in order to have that available option, based off what we're reading, you have to transfer them to 21.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Because if you have season tickets for 2020, that does not mean you have tickets for 2020. It means you have tickets for 2021 unless you say otherwise.
Priority for purchase of
Correct.
2020. Gotcha.
Correct. It really is the best way to do it in terms of fairness.
Yeah, which is smart actually. I was impressed by that because I was not sure how that would work. Because you got to think.
Do you have a lottery? Do you give some people money back? Do you assign people games and then just give them, like, prorate them what they paid for the tickets? You know what I mean?
Exactly, because that was the thing. It's like, how?
And then it's like, what if you can't go one of those days?
Sure.
Like, when people do season tickets, they sell their tickets online. So, like, you don't have that option now. Because presumably they're going to be a little tighter about identification in terms of who's going to be going to games.
Right.
You need to probably disclose your history in terms of travel and COVID. I mean, people are, if you want to go to a football game, they're going to go to a football game. They're going to make something up. So you have to be careful. And my mom runs a medical practice. And,
she's seen it all.
They do questionnaires, and people will just lie about their travel, and I'm sure it'll do the same thing for football. So you still got to be safe if you go to these games. You got to wear a mask. You have to be very, very careful. Keep some hand sanitizer.
From what I've heard, what the NFL is going to do is that whatever place has fans in seats, what they're going to do is they have to have the mask on at all times in the stadium outside of eating or consuming any kind of product.
Correct. Yes.
Which is kind of funny because I know we had kept talking about, Stooge, we're talking about Pat McAfee. Shout out to the McAfee show, man.
Yeah, man, hopefully.
That'd be crazy. But he was talking about how in the home of the Chiefs, they lift their masks up. That's funny.
You gotta be careful.
That's it. And now, last question for you.
Shoot.
Super Bowl 2020. Who do you got in it? And this is very early.
There's so much.
And I'm gonna have you on. Hopefully, we can continue to do this every week, and we can continue to be pliable and kind of change our picks. But right now, who do you got? Who do you think?
AFC bias aside, obviously, I would love to see the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I think Baltimore finally gets over that hump, the playoff win drought that they've had a hard time with.
I think it's going to be Baltimore, Kansas City championship game.
I would hate to see it, honestly. I'm going to be honest. I don't like seeing the same teams over and over again. Do I think it will happen? Probably. But I think Baltimore is in that Super Bowl. And I think you need to have a serious conversation about Seattle.
Interesting.
Seattle has, obviously, Russell Wilson. Anytime you got Russell Wilson, you're in a game. You will have a chance to win a game if you have Russell Wilson.
Yep.
They just added Jamal Adams. They got some really good corners.
Absolutely. By the way,